All right, a quick note before we start this one. Today's film block includes a movie called Dam Busters. The movie opens with a disclaimer regarding some of the language that's used in this film. I just want to let you guys know the Grindhouse Institute in no way condones the language that's used in this movie at all. This movie was clearly chosen as part of this block simply due to its inspiration on the film Star Wars. Just please be advised when watching this film. Thanks. I'm Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's film block that we call Inspiring Star Wars. A long time ago, May 25th, 1977, in a galaxy far, far away, the Milky Way, a young filmmaker named George Lucas released his ode to science fiction serials of the 30s. The film stunned audiences with its unique vision of a truly lived-in science fiction world. A world that introduced us to names such as Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia. A film that would go on to be one of the most influential and recognized of all time. Star Wars. Lucas drew inspiration from a number of works to develop the plot of Star Wars. While serials such as Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon were a clear inspiration, Lucas pulled from an even deeper catalog to craft his movie's narrative. Films from directors like Akira Kurosawa and Michael Anderson all contributed to Lucas's grand vision of a galaxy far, far away. Today's Grindhouse Institute block includes 1955's The Dam Busters, 1958's Hidden Fortress, and 1977's Star Wars. In the midst of World War II, Barnes Wallace, an aeronautical engineer, is enlisted to develop a method of attacking and crippling 3 German dams and severely damaging the Germans' war effort. His solution is one you wouldn't believe and one that is realized in spectacular fashion on screen in a scene reminiscent of a famous trench run. 2 greedy peasants agree to help escort a mysterious man and woman across enemy lines in return for a promise of gold beyond their wildest dreams. Little do they know that the mysterious woman they're transporting is Princess Yuki, the missing leader of her clan, and the man is the legendary General Makabe Rakuruto. A farm boy named Luke Skywalker is forced into a rescue mission after receiving a distress message sent from the leader of the rebellion, Princess Leia. Teaming up with 2 scoundrels, an old wizard, and a pair of droids, Luke helps the rebellion defeat the evil Empire by destroying their planet-killing space station, the Death Star. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy.
We were appointed to examine every possibility of air attack on these dams.
Yes, I know, but Mr. Wallace did put forward a theory that was hopelessly wide of the mark.
I'm only asking for one simple thing. I want you to give me sufficient time to discover how much explosive would be needed to breach these dams if we could explode a bomb directly against the wall.
How do you propose to get the bomb directly against the wall?
Well, that is what I'm working on now.
Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force.
All right, and welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster here with Jeremy Floyd. How's it going, Jeremy?
Doing all right. Burning up over here.
It is way hot. It is perfect weather for staying in the air conditioning and watching tons of movies all week.
Exactly.
And what an exciting week of movies it was this week. We have movies that have, in many ways, influenced, I would say, the look and feel and story beats of Star Wars. A New Hope, as it was, later titled but it was originally titled Star Wars. And we are watching 3 great films: Hidden Fortress from Kurosawa, and The Dam Busters from, I was going to say Michael Floyd, because I kept saying Michael Anderson, because we were...
Michael Anderson.
Yeah, Michael Anderson.
Floyd,
who directed some awesome movies like Around the World in 80 Days, Logan's Run, things like that. And
he did Logan's Run. Okay.
And of course Star Wars, the original. Jeremy got to watch the original.
It's kind of obscure. You may not have heard of it. It's called Star Wars.
Yeah, that's small. Yeah, so Star Wars, it's a guy named George Lucas directed it. It's a 1977 film. So we're Dam Busters from 1955, Hidden Fortress from 58, and Star Wars from 77. And watching these in that back-to-back fashion like we've been doing, there are so many beats that you're kind of like, did Lucas think of anything himself other than the name, Luke Skywalker?
Well, actually, he didn't come up with the name Luke Skywalker, right? It was Starkiller at one point. Luke Starkiller.
Anakin Starkiller was actually the name of Darth Vader before they switched it to Skywalker.
It could have been Starkiller Sound. Think about it.
Welcome to Starkiller Ranch, where we are destroying entire planets with our large space stations. This is the first time I had ever seen Dam Busters and Hidden Fortress. It's probably the 4,000th time I've seen Star Wars at this point.
Right.
But I'd love to, you came up with this great block. I'd love to hear, obviously we know why they are all put together, but if you have any other insights or anything, the floor is yours.
Kind of the idea behind this was to as Brian alluded to a little bit, we found some movies that inspired Star Wars. You can definitely see those influences. It's definitely not subtle. What was interesting was at first I was thinking, okay, Hidden Fortress for sure, but then I was thinking, okay, maybe we should do some of those Flash Gordon serials from the 40s.
There were never movies though, right? Those are
exactly. They're serials. So technically, I say in terms of what was taken from what, he took a lot more from Dam Busters, I think, than even Flash Gordon.
Yes.
It was definitely an interesting way to look at how Star Wars sort of came to be out of the inspiration from these movies from the 50s.
And Dam Busters, to give some background, it's an epic war film, came out in 1955, like we said. It's a World War II film about a secret operation where a squadron of fighter pilots are enlisted to learn how to fly and then bounce a bomb into 3 dams in Western Germany. You couldn't write this as a movie and someone would believe it. You know what I mean? Seeing that this was an actual historical event, and it was they bounced a bomb, skipped it like a rock, and
right, like a stone. Yeah, exactly. It was just so nuts.
Really fantastic portrayal of this and the reenactment and everything about Guy Gibson, GP Gibson, who was the pilot that manned this squadron, this super secret project that everyone had different ideas of what they were actually, what their target was going to be. They were going to kill Hitler. They were going to do, take out leaders of the SS, whatever it was, but no one really knew what their target was going to be. They just knew they had to learn how to fly so low, and clear inspiration for Trench Run scene at the end of A New Hope. Yeah, it's even the use of the miniatures and the exploding miniature planes and things like that. Some of those were very much reused.
Yeah.
Porkins dying was in both of those, so it was interesting to see.
Yeah. Just if we're sticking with Porkins for a second there, when that guy got it, in Dam Busters, there's whatever codename Z for zebra or whatever. That plane goes down, smashes into the side of the mountain, and they do this push in on Gibby, and it reminded me so much of when it was down to just Luke. Mm-hmm. And they do that same move.
Yep, exactly. That was the same. It was the same timing. It was
the same beat.
The dropout in the score and
exactly. The moment of silence. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, when I saw it, I'm like,
totally.
Come on, man. You gotta do the Porkins when you go.
Add some sound effects to that one.
I've got a problem here. Eject! I can hold it. No, I'm all right.
I really thought this was so interesting because of we got to see the process from Barnes Wallace, who is he a scientist? I'm assuming, or a physicist?
I wasn't clear what his area of study was, but yeah, he was an engineer of some sort, a scientist. Yeah,
and we open right on him skipping stones through some sort of catapult launcher that he's created to kind of simulate a miniature version of this in
front yard with his kids, and
Watch it, Christopher. 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. Fire, that's good. Mark it, Mary.
Like I said, this is a silly story, and no one buys into this guy's idea that you can do this. Like, no, he can't get the funding. He can't get the approval for it. He can't get... But finally, I think the prime minister gives him the okay or the...
There was a lot of administrative red tape that he had to cut through in this one to like get his crazy idea off the ground.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it starts off with Barnes Wallace, who's being played by Michael Redgrave, and he's coming up with this new idea. Like, okay, he knew that there were these 3 dams that were in a strategic area that were, really important, and he wanted to find a way
feeding water to the steel plants, actually, because that's how that would stop the steel production, which would very much give them an advantage.
Well, and as they said later in the movie, it was like, okay, instead of trying to like carpet bomb this whole area, they could flood it and do it all in one swoop. He kept trying to find ways to get the bombs to work, and he's like, okay, we need a 50 ton bomb, we need an 80 ton bomb, we need a 120 ton bomb, and then figured out through a lot of messing around that he was dropping the bomb in the water, and the water was absorbing the tons and tons of explosive. Figured out that you had to put the bomb right next to the dam wall, and in doing that, you'd be able to blow it up. But how do you do that and do it without killing the pilots? And the idea was that if you could skip the bomb across the surface of the lake or whatever that the dam was creating, then you could time it just right to where it sinks below the surface, past the sort of traps and everything that the Germans set up to prevent this type of thing from happening, and get it past that and blow up the dam. I think there's 45 minutes to an hour of this movie dedicated to him sort of cracking the code and how to get this thing to work, getting everyone's approval to do it, then building prototypes and getting those things to work and not break apart in the air. Multiple
test environments, multiple flights, learning how to fly at night. Coming up with those kinds of things and solutions throughout. Right.
But man, it was really cool seeing his first testing setup in that long warehouse where you got the like little...
It's the Death Star.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It does look like that I don't know what it is, the sort of barrel of the Death Star that they look down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like the best part, and those guys are just like doing their work, and that right. Beam's just flying past, and it was that same shot.
And they've got 2 like Asian soup spoons for a helmet, like back to back on their head. Yeah.
They're like dim sum spoons. We'll wear this, protect our heads, go home, and eat a few dumplings.
Yeah, don't question our fashion here. It's part of the uniform.
This looks good a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
You don't understand. It was a long time ago, okay? We were all doing it back then.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting to see how Wallace, basically had to figure out from, it was either we were going to drop the bomb in or skip it, like you said. But not only that, but they had to do it at night. Not only that, but they have different instruments that they couldn't really tell how far above the water they were. And they said, if they were going to go at 150 feet, one false move and they'd end up in the drink. By the end of this movie, they actually have to end up flying 60 feet above the ground, which is basically shorter than some of the trees and some of the things that are growing that they have to go up and over. And there were a lot of those moments where you're getting too close, Luke, and you had to pull up at the last minute and things,
It isn't only the structure of the bomb that's the trouble. It's in the dropping of it. We must lessen the force of the impact. I asked you originally if you could fly in over water and drop the bomb at 150 feet. I wonder if you could do it at 60 feet.
Oh, that's very low.
Oh, yes, I do realize that.
You'd only have to hiccup to finish in the drink.
Yes, I've got no right to ask you to do a thing like that, but I'm afraid it'll be our only way.
But I mean, what a horrific, exercise or mission for these guys. And I guess they lost 56 men doing this. But I guess the greater good for the greater number kind of idea. And that's kind of what they went through at the end. But Barnes Wallace was not happy with the results, even though it was a successful mission. He didn't realize how many lives would be lost during this.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea of what it takes in the laboratory and on paper versus what it looks like in reality. and the sort of, the cold realization he has at the end there was pretty moving. And it took an actor like Michael Redgrave to be able to kind of sell that moment with an expression.
Yes,
he doesn't say a whole lot at that time, but you can definitely feel it.
I do want to bring up something. We don't condone any of the language in this film, nor the bigotry that shows up in this odd sequence that could be completely removed from this film and it wouldn't change anything. Gibson's dog has an odd name. I think it's the same name that H.P. Lovecraft named his dog.
Seriously,
too.
I didn't know that, but I guess it wouldn't surprise me about given Lovecraft's dispensation.
Yeah, exactly. There's a disclaimer at the beginning of the film when you watch it, but it is for the time that they're representing, it's accurate. However, we just want to let you know that is not safe for work. If you're going to pull this up and watch it, just be aware of that. But around that, this is a really, really well done film. Minus that part, I think was near perfection. The special effects work in this in this movie for 1955 kind of blew me away. Like the miniature detail and the water rippling in those miniatures and the explosions and things. I mean, the dam stuff looked really interesting, especially when they had the close-ups. Kind of had the those old Bible films that like were done. When the big rushes of water and stuff, they still did that miniature work. But it was really successful. The sound was great.
Yeah.
The score was great. Really interesting movie.
The part of the movie that I think most people would respond to the best was the ending, which is the part that Lucas took the most out of, which is sort of the mission itself, the bombing run. In that, there's a lot of things like the German guns trying to shoot down the planes, and they have these like tracer rounds, so you see these like streaks of light like shooting across the screen.
They were just frames of animation.
Yeah, exactly. Which they're like kind of like scraping off the film to do, and it was this interesting process. But it was totally effective with the sound effects and everything, and totally exactly what was happening on the surface of the Death Star when all the X-wings and whatever else were getting shot at. Yeah, with those.
Oh God, yes.
those,
Their ships are too small for our turbo lasers. This was a 2-month just training operation. I believe just the flight part of that was. So like the sequence leading up to like when they decided to do this mission and how long basically what I'm getting at is these guys had to keep this thing secret. And other squadrons and things that were, big heroic squadrons that were getting all these missions completed. These guys were I think they called them the armchair squadron, versus they didn't do anything. They just sat around and they all thought that they were doing absolutely nothing. And then they had to get into a little brawl, a little scuffle with another squadron, the 57th, who were talking shit.
The entire place, it was like Animal House. It was just completely going nuts. And he's like, what's going on with the boys? Oh, I think someone's talking shit again. Okay.
Yeah, and Gibson's like, he just kind of gave a smile and continued working on his map.
Well, it's good to have an evening off for once.
Yeah, 16 ops last month. 7 in the first 2 weeks in May. What are you fellas going to do when you've worn those armchairs out?
Joke, Can't you take it?
We're getting a little tired of it. Come on, chaps, off with their bags.
He can't be bothered to party.
But it's like some other Star Wars moments in here. This kind of had the obviously we saw that there was a chain reaction that was going to be created by this bomb because of that, the action and the way he drew it out. It was like that starburst thing that he drew, and it was the same digital image that they had.
Oh yeah. It was the same sort of computer image that they.
Boop, 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 boop,
Yeah.
boop, boop, boop. Yeah.
It'll cause a chain reaction, causing the Death Star to blow up. Yeah, exactly. It was.
And may the force be with you. And then the targeting computer.
Oh yeah, very, very low tech targeting computer in this one. Yeah.
Use the force, Luke. But they didn't get anybody to tell them to use the force. They actually used the targeting computer successfully in this, at least for two of the dams of the 3. I don't think they blew up all 3, right? They destroyed 2 of them.
Okay, so that part of the film, the sort of most captivating part of the film, was also a little confusing because they had a bunch of teams and everyone's masked up it's not like you knew anybody's faces anyway, except for maybe Gibby. Everyone kind of looked the same. You didn't know where they were. You didn't know if these were happening simultaneously or if it was like they got to do one after the other. But we only saw on screen 2 dams blow up.
Yes, exactly. So there were 3 dams total. The 2 that were destroyed from two or three bombs that were sent. No, I think there were 2 bombs per each squadron. So like there were 2 bombs that went off, and the second ones are the ones that destroyed the 2 other dams. But the first dam did not go down at all, I don't think. And I think it was that was a failure. And one of them, the bomb like blew up over it. Like that's what I was confused on that one. But I mean, it was chaos.
There's one where a bomb blew up too soon, and there's too much of a water cushion to blow up the dam. And then they dropped another one on that same dam, and it didn't work for another reason. The third one, it seemed like it didn't work, but it was enough to just crack it and let all the pressure out. And then they move on to the next location, where it was really hard to pull up from that 60 feet, because they were going to smash into the mountains on the other side of the dam.
Yeah.
That was the one where they got down to a single bomb, I think, but they nailed it in the last shot.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that what's presented on screen is that they blow up 2 of the dams and they call it good.
I think for the time, a 1955 film really touching on kind of the horrors of war along with the glory of war was an interesting style choice, I'm sure, at that time, too.
Well, I mean, Best Years of Our Lives was 46. I mean, they didn't hold back from too much of the sort of horrors or after effects of the war.
We'll have to watch that one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good one.
Anything else with that?
Yeah, just a couple things. Like very, very beginning, like kind of a minor note. If you blink, you might miss it. You see Michael Redgrave's character Barnes Wallace. You see Barnes's wife a couple times in the movie, but the first time you see her, she's got her hair up in the dueling buns on either side, like she's wearing headphones, just like Princess Leia. It's.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's wild. You should go back and watch the opening scene again. Right after he skips the little pebble across the thing with his kids, they go inside and they're talking about that his daughter is like feeling sick or whatever. His wife is chatting with the doctor, and while she's doing that, she's got her hair up in that same style. It's nuts. Yeah.
Come on, that's got to be our social post.
Yeah. Can you imagine where they got the inspiration for this haircut?
I didn't even notice that. I don't want to rag on it too much, but I mean, what did we learn here today so far? That George Lucas, was inspired a lot.
Sure. Well, real quick, one other quick thing is that what I will say about the Star Wars thing. Essentially, the entire third act feels very much like the third act of Star Wars. But what's interesting is that, yes, he was clearly inspired by this, but in Star Wars, you're never confused about who is where and what's happening. Whereas in this one, like we were just stumbling and fumbling over it, we kind of didn't know. Like, did they get all 3? They simplified it to 1
because everyone was named leader.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's a leader. They simplified it to 1 target. Everyone's going after that target. There's obstacles in their way, Darth Vader with his little crew, all these other things. You're clearly understanding what's happening, and you understand, what was the difference between using the targeting computer and using the Force? You clearly understood, why Luke was able to do it and not the other guys. In this one, they did several bombing runs, and it's there wasn't something where it's okay, now I got it. I figured out how to drop this thing or time it. It was just kind of, almost a little bit of luck to just kind of nail it timing wise.
Yeah.
Because this thing was so precarious. One other thing I wanted to say was during the engineering section, the part that I really liked was I was worried because the 2 of the flyboys, 2 of the flyboys were out on some R&R, and they went to go watch
the Rockettes.
Yeah, this burlesque show. While I was watching it, I was like, what is going on? What are we doing? Let's get back to the bombing. That is the part. But what was cool was, he was watching the spotlight, and he figured out how do we fly low enough? At that point, the altimeter doesn't work, but how do we fly low enough to be able to do it? And he figured it out by shining the 2 spotlights at the right angle, and that was such a really cool a detail in there that like that's how they did it, and it was cool that like that's how they were inspired to do it or whatever.
I like that they showed it too as it was going on, and it was just funny because I wrote down in my notes Rockettes Revelation, and I was like spotlights matching. And the way that he put it, he's like, if you plumb match the lights, you're far enough down or whatever. And he says that, and it was like steady,
Yeah.
a little faster, steady, and that like held it. That was really really cool. But again, they were like learning as they were going along, and had to just evolve like through this like after trial and trial and trial over. I think it's like 8 months or something for this whole thing to go, at least. Because it was just 5 months of experiments shooting. That was when they were just shooting golf balls.
Right. And then it was just a couple weeks, get it all lined up and ready to rock and roll.
In the theater as like a first-time moviegoer to see this film in 1955 and to have those shots of, you know, the gunner's seat over the shoulder of the gunner as a real plane is flying, even though it's like a projection or whatever. But still, like, could you feel that as you were in like a theater for the first time? Like that must have blew people away.
No, totally. That feeling you're describing of like, you know, the largeness of the screen and sort of like, you know, being put in a place where you're there and it's like, you know, you've got your peripheral vision taken up by this whole thing, and it kind of gives you that vertigo when they do some of those dives.
Yeah.
That was definitely how it felt watching Dunkirk in IMAX. Also because they had so many like sort of practical effects, and it definitely gave you that sort of tangible feeling that we were talking about the other day. Because of the spectacle, it sort of makes up for what the story is, you know, lacking in certain character departments and whatever else. For like the fourth time, the last thing I'm going to say about Dam Busters. What?
This is your favorite damn movie ever in all of damn time.
What was crazy was like reading the credits for this. I was like, oh, that guy's name looks familiar. The guy who was doing a lot of the special effects photography, his name was Gil Taylor, who was the cinematographer on Star Wars. Can you believe it? Yeah, it's nuts.
Any other damn comments?
No, I'm finally ready to move on this time.
Let's move on to Hidden Fortress, which is Akira Kurosawa's film from 1958. Takes place feudal Japan. I guess is the best way to describe that. With one of the coolest Japanese actors, Toshiro Mifune. He's in a ton, and he is a bad ass, and he is awesome in this. But this is a story of R2-D2 and C-3PO as two peasants, give or take.
Right. I think that was their name, right? In the movie, there are sort of three main territories. Two of the territories were fighting one another, it looks like the droids, the droid peasants.
It is, right? Like that's clear, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Especially like in the very opening, like they're complaining about how, you know, they got taken out of their village, they got separated, they had to fight in this damn war that they didn't want to fight in. Damn war. Hey, there you go. And then they're like, all right, I'm tired of you, and they went their separate ways. And then we, you know, sort of like, you know, star wiped the frame, and cut to they're both been kidnapped by Jawas, and were having to mine as slaves for the losing clan's gold.
Right.
First of all, I think this is one of the first movies, or one of the early movies where Kurosawa was shooting in scope.
Had to be gorgeous.
And yeah,
wow.
He really, really knows how to fill up the frame, and
texture.
Yeah, exactly. Like everywhere you look, there's something going on, but he knows where to direct your eyes. Much like a really great stage director. Also, not afraid to use handheld. I think the opening shot of the two droids arguing with one another is a handheld like oneer all the way until that guy comes in who's injured, and like these cavalry guys on horseback are stabbing him. They do a loop around him, like nearly step on his head, it looks like. And that was all like a oneer. And that turns out like that guy, I was watching a little interview with him later, and he was like, a millimeter to the left and that horse would have killed me.
Because it steps right next to his face or his head, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah. There were a lot of crazy big moments in this, especially involving horses and fighting and everything. But really a nicely paced movie for being a long movie. It's a pretty long film. I mean, it's over 2 hours.
Yeah, it's like 2:20 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a considerably long movie. But once we meet these peasants, once they go to work, we are soon introduced to General Rokuruto, who is Mifune's character, and but we don't know who he is right away. Right? It's kind of a mystery. This guy in a beautiful thong bikini.
Yeah.
Is walking around the middle of nowhere, and why the hell?
He's got his
and it's kind of
feudal Japanese Daisy Dukes on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's loungewear for a samurai.
Yeah. And isn't that terrain really interesting? Doesn't it look like a sand person's going to come up behind him at any point? You know?
Exactly. What I thought was interesting was. And this kind of dawned on me after I watched the film and kind of sunk in a little bit, was that Rokuruto, who we don't know who he is yet, is kind of like out in the middle of nowhere when the two peasants see him. And it's almost as if it's similar to that scene when Luke and Ben or Obi-Wan and Han, Chewie, they all see that TIE fighter that's out in the middle of space, and they're like, this is way too far out in space for something to be there. So in that instance, like, the hidden fortress was the Death Star where Rokuruto was holed up, but you thought there was no fortress there because it was like the middle of space, but in this it was like the middle of a mountain. But yeah, he is holed up in a hidden fortress, hence the name of the film, that has some really cool secret ins and outs through the mountain range. I thought there were some funny moments where we could have gone this way. We didn't have to climb this whole mountain.
Yeah. So the two like peasant droids, are sent up this rocky terrain.
I love that we lean into some of these things. Just the two peasant droids.
Yeah, I mean,
Japan.
It's gonna be better than tripping over their names because they're not easy to say. But those guys are running up the side of the mountain on this really crumbled rock face.
Hardly make it.
They're clawing and biting to the top of this because Mifune's convinced them that there's a hoard of gold or something up there. They get up to the top. They see down onto the hidden fortress, and the hidden fortress is just this like these two little dwellings, these little shacks essentially, in the sort of valley of this mountain range. Mifune, who they had left down below, walks out of one of the shacks, and they're like, "What the hell? How did this happen?" Hands on the hips. Yeah.
So
showing
tough.
off those amazing quads of his.
Exactly.
And with his very high Batman and Robin tights. The two peasant droids are at the same time 3PO and R2D2, but also Han Solo with their sort of lust for gold or whatever.
They were the smugglers in this. They were smuggling the gold, and what they didn't know was Princess Yuki as well, the mute.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't mute, but she had to play a mute. But yeah, they were the smugglers. They were Han and Chewie. They were R2D2, and I was thinking that same thing. I was like, wow, they play a lot of roles in this, and it actually kind of made it a little bit more focused too when you thought about it, because they wore multiple hats.
Yeah. Although if they had made Star Wars with just the two droids that were also lusting for gold, it would be a movie that everyone forgot about, and we would have all, our entire culture would have been different. Because, Han Solo makes Star Wars.
He
and
is
without
Star
him,
Wars.
No one enjoys that movie.
Star Wars is the Han Solo story, and this guy Luke Skywalker's doing something during it.
Right.
And like,
I care. Yeah. It's like, no one cares, Luke. Come on, buddy.
Gonna take your money and run, huh? Just take your 4 million.
That's all you care about.
Just take your space bucks and get out of here.
Space bucks, yeah.
Well, they just
President Scroob.
They just took enough for lunch, gas, and tolls. So yeah, what's really cool about this, the Hidden Fortress, is that we see the general. Before he's a general, we just think he's just some random dude that's trying to transport a bunch of wood from this quarry, which is full of gold. But they're trying to get it into another territory, and this territory is friendly with the territory that was, or the clan that was taken over and dominated by
the other general.
Yeah, exactly. The other general, Tadakoro is his name. He was Rokuruto's peer, basically. He was like the equivalent of him.
It was Patton's Rommel. Yeah, there were 3 clans: Toshiro Mifune and the princess's clan, the bad guys clan, and then the sort of neutral clan.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And they were smuggling gold inside of bundles of sticks out of the Mifune clan's territory through the neutral clan's territory and sort of back into the princess's territory, because essentially the Mifune and princess territory, they had lost some ground in their border or whatever in this battle.
We should probably map this out in an infographic or something.
Yeah. Okay. Is everyone okay? So there's a circle here and a circle there, and then there's a thing, and they had to go underneath it and then back up into it. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like, let's not worry about that part. But essentially, they had to go on a little journey to smuggle this gold out of the ceded territory that they had lost in a battle.
And so we see how they try to make their way across. Princess Yuki, who we find out is a princess. She's just some woman that's with this random fella who we find out later is a general, and he's trying to get her across this border. But she has to act mute in order to fool people that meet her, because there's a sense of nobility and royalty.
Right, she has a really
in the way she speaks.
accent or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So she needed to be mute, which is terrible because she is definitely an outspoken, very strong woman that clearly can. An early example of a very strong woman on film, I would have to say. Like, she was a badass.
Or
she was
a strong teenager. She was like 16.
Exactly. But she was in charge. And then, but the peasants find out that this gold is part of the Akazuki clan, who's the defeated clan, because they see this crescent moon on it. It's like that insignia
Stamped
that they've got. And we get to see how they bring the gold across. They successfully get to this other territory that's friendly territory, and then we see Rokuruto become a samurai with that crescent moon on his head. And when he comes out full samurai, dude, I stood up from my couch and I was like, dude, that was the best.
Wait, are you talking about the very end?
Very end, yes. Like,
okay,
I hate to skip ahead, but I had to draw a little like sketch of him when I was doing it. I was like, dude, that was.
Yeah, he's got that sort of crescent at the top of his helmet. His helmet also looks a little like the Darth Vader helmet. If you.
Yeah, just like the dark helmet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lone Star.
No, I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
Good.
Knock next time. Knock, I say. So again, like let's talk about some of the.
So what does that make us?
Absolutely nothing. Which is what you are about to become. So obvious moments here. We had some great one-on-one fights between Tadokoro and Rokuruto. One of the most drawn
the spear
out
fight of the generals
was
so awesome.
But it was real, you know.
It was probably one of the best set pieces in the movie. Even though there was a really great, that chase on the horses that led to the spear fight was amazing too. Like that one where it's like the 2 droids, the princess, this
and Lone Star,
sex slave that they rescued. And
that was terrible.
Mifune were all carrying all these sticks on their back, and these 2 horses with all the sticks that have the gold in it, and they get sort of caught by these stormtroopers on horseback, and Mifune's got to go kill everybody to make sure that the word doesn't get out
on horseback,
and that whole sequence was just amazing, and then it tops itself by having this amazing really long spear fight.
But not cheesy. Not a bunch of moves and everything. It was a lot of them sizing each other up. It felt like a real fight.
It was a lot of waiting.
They were basing that. They had to base that on real spear technique or something. You know what I mean? Like, I swear, because they were not doing all the crazy shit that Ray Park does, like in Phantom Menace and all that stuff, like Darth Maul. Like, this felt like a real fight, and it was tense. And it was, the score was that, those heavy drums and stuff. And Kurosawa knew how to make a movie. This movie is
you don't say.
so good.
Yeah.
And just seeing the metamorphosis of the characters and like Princess Yuki had like everyone has a moment, a huge moment in the movie that they definitely like take over. Even the peasants, even though they're kind of comic relief, they're still pivotal for this, and they still are the people that narrate us through the entire film. They're the ones dragging us through, and just incredible. And we're just there to watch.
They are the sort of audience surrogates. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and what else was like exciting about this fight was that, both of them were well matched. It wasn't like one was sort of better than the other, or one was clearly more physically able to fight than another.
No, they were nemesis. Yeah.
Yeah, like both of them had each other's number, and it was a fair fight. The progression of it was so fascinating. It has these different beats in it, how they got to the end of it, and how it sort of resolved itself, and this interesting way in which it ended, where Mifune didn't kill the guy when he had him sort of pinned and dead to rights, and
let him suffer, or let him be, whatever. Don't take him out. But that came around.
Well,
again.
No, he was like, hey, I gotcha. All right, I'm gonna get out of here, and then he goes on with the mission to get back to his and the princess's Crescent Clan's territory. But off screen, and then later we see this guy come back, this general come back, and his king or whatever has shamed him by slicing his face open, and he's got this like giant scar through his face
because he should have died in battle.
Yeah, and the whole point was to make his life shame from then on. He's gonna wear that scar. I know this isn't the movie we're talking about, but how much did his reveal of his face kind of remind you of the Darth Vader reveal in Jedi?
Yes, it was. Yeah, very much so. And it was a similar wound. Where the. I guess like Darth Vader,
just sort of just under the eye.
Exactly. Yeah, it was here.
Although his like starts up on his forehead and then across his nose and under his eye, whereas I guess the Darth Vader one is they're sort of giant scarred bags under his eyes.
Something. He's tired.
No,
can't sleep in that big suit.
Yeah, not with that respirator. But then they get to a really really interesting scene after that where they get sort of swept up in this local peasant ritual or whatever of like,
the dance,
the midsummer bonfire, and
it was midsummer.
Luckily that they weren't doing a Wicker Man; they were just burning wood, and like it's called the Fire Festival, and then the princess and the droids and everybody had to like burn the wood that contained all the gold in it, and like the next day they had to like dig it out of there. But like that scene where they were burning it and doing the dancing, like you could see that being done in a way where it's like they spend too long, or it's not interesting the way they're putting it together. But again, like Kurosawa, as one of the best filmmakers ever, makes the scene and makes it engaging for the audience in a way.
It worked for the story.
And Exactly. It paid off.
Yes.
In later on when they're kidnapped, and her song to the general, and her like the princess's confession to the general that like this guy's a bad leader because he shouldn't have shamed you or whatever. This is fucking bullshit. Inspires their escape later on. I had seen this movie like in high school. I went through a huge Kurosawa phase, but I hadn't really seen it since. I feel like it's so weird because I remember parts of it and I remembered some of the set pieces, but forgot how captivating it was through the whole thing
from start to finish. Yeah, I mean, you really don't know what's going on at the beginning. It kind of just throws you into like this mess.
Totally.
Yeah, but but it knows it doesn't need to because over time they're just going to feed you a little bit.
Right.
Like we don't really find
it
out.
It was, like you were saying on one of the other episodes about like, build to form. And that totally does that. It just throws you into it. You don't know what's going on, and then you find out. And, the droid characters that are motivated by gold, they also sort of, grow with the movie in a way.
Absolutely.
And because of this journey, they have a different outlook on things at the end. And it, so their arc was totally earned. There's no sort of shortcuts there.
Because I think originally, and it gets pared down by the end, but they talk about splitting like 500 pieces of gold or whatever the amount of gold. They ended up with 1 Rio, which was the gold coins, one of them by the end, each of them, which was enough. You know what I mean? To at least get them to lunch, gas, and tolls, I guess. But it was enough for them because I think that they themselves
to pay off their bookie Jabba.
Exactly. Pizza the Hut.
You're delicious. Hey.
I think that shows specifically that they did grow as characters. They did change, and they were no longer motivated by that. They were just part of a goddamn adventure, like they were part of a successful mission to save this princess and to get her across state lines or however district lines. I don't know how they say it. Prefectures, however.
Yeah.
Japan,
well, no, they were from the sort of Crescent Moon Princess Yuki's prefecture, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that was the case.
Yeah.
But then they got across the sort of neutral border back into their place. But man, how much did that their reward ceremony remind you of the the medal ceremony at the end?
Yeah, exactly.
Of Star Wars.
I was actually, I could see this film being like recut at some little movie theater for a festival or something with the John Williams soundtrack in place, and you could even put that end soundtrack in there for this, and it would probably match up.
You know what? All right. Here's the last thing I'm going to say with the Dam Busters was that, like,
Damn it!
the ending, when sort of the pilot, Gibby or whatever his name was walking away, that music was swelling. And I thought for sure it was going to go straight into the... Yeah, exactly.
Written and directed by George Lucas.
Yeah.
I think that's a circle wipe too. What they do at the end. I know exactly what you're talking about. I actually felt
Star Wars.
You're talking about that happened in Dam Busters, right? I thought I felt like that was going to happen at the end of Hidden Fortress as well. Like I was like, it's going to happen. Like this is actually Star Wars. But I guess, is there anything else you'd like to say about Hidden Fortress? We could move on to that little film called Star Wars.
Yeah, the film you perhaps have never heard of.
Do we even give a synopsis?
Yeah, I don't know. I what do we even say about Star Wars? It's just, it's the movie that the most famous movie ever made. You've seen it and you know what it is and you've heard it in the culture.
I don't care if you don't like Star Wars, you don't like Star Trek, you've seen it. You know what it is at the very least. Yeah. But yes, during this galactic civil war, which kind of is in line with Hidden Fortress, that was all Civil War territory. There is a rebellion rising up, and a princess is trying to get plans to destroy the ultimate weapon of the enemy, the Death Star, trying to get these plans into the hands of a person that can get something done with it, actually, which is, in this instance, a man named Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that's kind of how Star Wars starts out, and with a bang.
He may be her only hope.
Yeah, that's exactly, what he is. So... Everyone knows this movie. I watched it on Disney Plus, which means I got probably the 2015 re-edited version, or even later than that, of New sound effects, new scenes. Yeah, the whole pacing of it just doesn't work for me anymore. In that version,
because did they is that the one that has
Jabba,
the restored Jabba or whatever?
Terrible, and it's terrible. Yeah, it's almost as if they haven't improved that either.
Han shoots second cut on LS. Yeah.
Han shoots at the same time in this one.
Oh.
So this is the newest.
He knew it was coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess that's okay if you shoot at the same time. But
Right.
let's talk about the original. You just watch it, so it's fresh in your mind. In my opinion, Star Wars really sits on its own as a very cool Western sci-fi fantasy film that touches on everything that everyone could be interested in. Anyone that has an interest in anything could find something in Star Wars, especially the original one, that they're like, I like it. I like that there's a princess that's awesome, that's strong, that's leading a rebellion. I like a cool character named Luke Skywalker who learns that he's, can control this mysterious force in the galaxy that can, do amazing things. Han Solo and Chewbacca are really cool characters. They're thieves, they're scoundrels in many ways, but you know what? That's cool because they've got a cool ship and they're fast and they can get things done, and they're against this really cool looking enemy and this dark black Darth Vader. Just this movie has it all, in my opinion. And in its original form, I think it's near perfection. Even if it's not totally perfect, I think it's a really fun film in many ways, and I think it's definitely the strongest of the 9.
But this podcast only recognizes 3, so you have to pare that list down.
Disclaimer: This podcast only recognizes the original Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah,
it's almost like Wayne trying to play Stairway to Heaven. The dude's like pointing and stuff.
Stairway
denied. So this is in my opinion still, and I know everyone loves Empire and all that, I still think Star Wars: A New Hope or whatever, Star Wars is the best of the original films. It's just it's so good, it's so fun, it feels great, the effects still hold up. Yeah, sorry, I didn't.
How would you know? You didn't watch the uncut.
A lot of them are
uncut gems version.
A lot of them are the same. The trench run is I pretty much exactly the same. They haven't really touched any of that stuff. They didn't redo that with CG. That's still the old models.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I hope not.
I hope I am. The re-release in theaters, and I wanted to fucking puke.
Well,
it was pretty bad. And then they cut it or whatever later, right? With some more of the establishing shots of Mos Eisley and stuff, right?
Yeah. So just real quick, the differences in this one, yes, when they released the film in the theaters with the new effects, there was more Mos Eisley when they were leading up to it, which is fine. I think that's just fluff anyway. It doesn't really get in the way. But when they added a Jabba the Hutt scene that was in the original script, they shot it, but it wasn't the Jabba that we knew.
So real quick, I on this thing, it's like, there are certain little moments like that where they enhance the effects and they move this and move that and kind of add a quick little bit to the establishing shot. But even if that doesn't ruin the pacing of the movie or somehow change the character like it does with Han shooting second or whatever, it does influence what the movie was as sort of a time capsule from 1977. Yes. So you're saying, the special effects still hold up. And my joke about how the fuck would you know is that what you're watching is this revision. And so, the way it's put together, this isn't a restoration of damaged film elements and cleaning up the sound or doing some
or
of those things.
Remaster.
It is changing those things. So as a time capsule or whatever else of what was sort of possible at the time and what the movie was that became the sort of biggest and most well-known movie in the world. The cut of it from 2015 is not that movie.
No.
And what's so frustrating is that you can't fucking find that movie.
No,
it's very, very hard. It came out on Laserdisc. It came out on a DVD once, and then it was on VHS for a while there. But even that one, was cropped for a 4:3 screen. So that there's all these really frustrating aspects of that. And like, this is one of the more egregious examples of.
Oh, certainly.
That's a sort of like revisionist meddling or whatever.
Return of the Jedi, though, puts this one to shame in terms of revisionist remaster, whatever you want to call it. They have an entire extra scene with Sized Noodles, the girl that sings in the band, Max Rebo's band, in the cantina, or Jabba's cantina.
God, right. And there's one where it's like the giant lips like pull out from the camera.
Yes,
like,
that's exactly what I was going to say. But think about how strong that would have been had they used a similar effect as the kissing gremlin from Gremlins 2 at the end. Like, that would have been... Like, that would have held up, right? Or at least, like, they could have redone this movie and added more scenes and did the original effects. This was another way for, in my opinion, Lucas to say, hey, we've got this big effects house. Look at how we can do whatever we want to even films that are 30 years old at this time. Or, 30 plus years old.
If there's, like, the Star Wars, the ego cut or whatever, like, those are fine. But, like, as long as, I don't know what, you don't try to erase the original one. Apocalypse Now has like 3 cuts now. Blade Runner has 16 cuts. It's like there's these movies where it's like you're like, oh, I like that movie. Well, which one are you talking about?
Right. Especially Blade Runner.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you watch the director's cut? Did you watch the one with the narration? Yeah. Did you watch the one with the unicorn running at the end?
The international cut, the work print.
My love of Star Wars goes back to these puppets that were really awesome. The cantina scene that's full of these weird, obscure aliens, a lot of them from Rick Baker. And he was like a very young makeup effects artist making masks. And he was in a lot of those masks, including the devil horns guy that's sitting in there having drinks. That's his mask. And
right,
there's a bunch of them. Yeah. Like there are moments in this. The original trench fight, I think trench battle is really awesome. They added all this stuff with the big ring that blows out of the Death Star and out of the planet, and I was like, that just doesn't look right to me.
The ring thing. So just for context, I watched the uncut version. Like what was supposedly close to what was in the theaters. I know that. Some Star Wars nerds will get mad at me because I think there was some slight variations before.
They're just going to get mad at you because you called them Star Wars nerds.
You bastard. How dare you describe me as a nerd? I know everything about Star Wars. But whenever it's in clip form or it's in a best of or whatever, like they show the Death Star exploding with the ring now.
Yeah.
And I had kind of forgotten that it didn't have the ring originally.
Yeah, exactly, because it's been ingrained in our head now that there's a ring that pops out of it.
Yeah, and that's...
That was a not broke situation. That was not broken.
Totally,
that looked
exactly.
great.
All those... Look, the whole movie is a not broke situation. It was a very successful movie that wasn't, like, taken away from him and, like, screwed up with like, a studio that kicked him out or, like, some other circumstances where, like, things were destroyed. It was the movie that it should have been.
Yeah.
And it became a classic.
He didn't need it. It wasn't a rough draft. It was his first attempt and it was a success. He didn't need to redo the rough draft.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I love Star Wars. Again, I know the nerds love Empire, blah blah blah. Okay, Empire is cool. But I just love this film so much. I love how Luke changes throughout the piece. I love that this is Han Solo's story in many ways because he's the one that really does a change. He's the one that changes. He has the full character arc, which gets lost in this version. His arc gets lost.
Oh, in what version?
In these versions where he doesn't shoot first, because at one time he was an asshole, scoundrel, thief that kills somebody right at the beginning, and then by the end of it he's saving the day. That's an arc.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. No, I for sure that changes his character. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I do agree that it does change that. But what I was gonna say was just that he is the sort of glue that holds together this movie in the sense that like in this world, like the idea of the Jedi and all this stuff is like that old religion and superstition and whatever else they say has gone away. He has that sort of cynical view on it. And like you're saying, like, you know, he kind of came around.
Superstitious mumbo jumbo, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, Brian, don't get cocky.
Because he says, "May the force be with you" later on, right?
Yeah,
like he's open to it.
So it's like his perspective on some of this stuff, and, you know, his irreverence with a lot of things, and his sense of humor and everything else. I kind of, you know, counterbalances some of both the silliness with the droids, the like severity and like taking themselves very seriously with the you know, Obi-Wan and Luke, and, you know, his sparring with the princess or whatever, like, you know, gives, you know, the audience something to cling on to. Whereas, you know, you can see in some of the other films, it's either too silly or it's like, you know, too reverent and doesn't have that piece that the audience would want to cling on to, which is, you know, again, like for me, you know, Han Solo is the glue of all this stuff.
Yes.
And how funny was it that, like, okay, at one point they were thinking about casting a young Kurt Russell in this.
Yeah.
And, you know, as much as I love Kurt Russell, like, no fucking way.
No, I don't think so. I'm glad he went the route of Snake Plissken.
You know, in certain things like Hard Target, where I would be like, I'd be all on board for a Kurt Russell Hard Target and all this stuff. For, you know, all kinds of movies where he's great.
Anybody in Hard Target.
Just like Indiana Jones, like no one else can play Indiana Jones. It's Harrison Ford or nothing, you know, or bust.
I agree. And don't make another movie if it can't happen. Or don't call it Indiana Jones, for Christ's sake. Call it something else, you know, like
yeah.
Montana Bones or something, you know, like just give it a different name. And
right.
Now they're, you know, let's just put Chris Pratt in there. He can put on a hat and some flannel, like he did it in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how this is all thought of, I guess. So this is interesting because this is the first time we've ever gotten into kind of a little bit of a rant.
Is it the first time?
When it comes to our thoughts on a film, but I think we are in agreement that Star Wars did not need to be fixed. Star Wars did not need to be improved, and in fact, in many ways, the original cut of that is just such a strong, large-scale BBC space opera. You know, it's got everything, all the makings of like a really cool serial, which is what he was trying to make, and he even touched, even the ships look real, and the things look real in it. They're tangible, they're dirty, and they're broken, and they're laser blasted, and whatever they say. But that stuff looks like you can go out there and sit in it and go and fly it. You know, there's just some practicality to it that this movie had that I think really is what set it apart.
Yeah, there was a stroke of brilliance to have the droids and the ships and all this stuff, like, you know, kind of, you know, covered in grime and, you know, that
rust,
sort of, you know, rocket burning fuel, you know, marks and rust and all that kind of stuff. You know, it gives the world like a lived in experience. Whereas when you see other movies or, you know, space TV shows where things are just like too shiny and
pristine.
Like, too pristine. Yeah, exactly. Like the 50s UFOs and whatever else that are, you know, just like extremely, you know, cylindrical and like polished and all these other things.
Well, they look like World War II fighter jets or fighter planes in this, you know, propeller planes. But, you know, even the X-Wings had that feel of these old fighter planes that were in the Dam Busters. You know, they had that same feel, you know, where the guy sits in the cockpit and the bubble and all that stuff, you know, that was all in there. And the guns felt the same. You know, it's like he did a real good job of making a practical thing, you know, like these pump action guns, but a laser comes out of it, you know, but there was something there that was so grounded that you know, forgave that it was a laser and you kind of bought into it because it felt like it was coming from something that you recognize, or at least myself, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was fantastic.
Right. I mean, it like gave you a way to believe the fantastical there. And, like, you know, they lived in a world, you know, and that's, you know, kind of a design and production design thing. But also, you know, the way that everyone sort of spoke about this or that, like, you know, you feel the world, like there's a lot more world that you're not seeing. And, you know, it gives you that sense of, you know, adventure and whatever else that we were talking about.
I have to say that I feel as if this movie, and when all the other or subsequent movies came out, especially the prequels, which we'll talk about briefly, I don't think that this movie was used as like the basis for the story, because there is so much in this movie that's outside of just this one sequence of events, this beginning of Luke Skywalker meeting Han Solo and Leia and all that. They talk about the Clone Wars. They talk about things that happened before. They open up this narrative to such amazing lengths, and I know they touched on them in the movies, but in my opinion, when I was hearing this, like, Clone Wars, that sounds like scary and sci-fi, and like that sounds like that could have been a really cool movie. Instead, we got Attack of the Clones. But
no, but what you're describing is backstory, and
yeah,
that's where it's best served. Is like
right
to give context to Alec Guinness, to give context to Darth Vader and this whole plan and whatever. There's stuff that happened before, fine, but the origin story movie, the prequel movie, like, you know, not all of those deserve their own experience, you know, especially in this scenario where it's like you sort of you know where all this stuff is going. It isn't a story in and of itself. It's just there to sort of like explain some crap. Backstory here lends to the texture of everything else that's happening. You know, some of the other planets, the Galactic Empire, all this kind of crap. But to watch Senate meetings, what Viceroy Goober Smith and, you know, whatever else is up to, like, fucking who cares? Like,
seriously,
all that stuff is a who cares. Like, even the Clone Wars, it's like, who cares? I mean, really, because like the wars and the exploding or whatever, like, if the rebel base planet wasn't on that moon, wasn't in danger, you wouldn't give a shit if they could blow up the Death Star or not. You know, just having battle scenes with no stakes and, like, you know, you don't care what's happening. Like, it's not good enough to just show that there's a battle. Like, that's not exciting unless what's happening in that battle, you know, you are invested in what these characters are up to, what happens if this thing fails. Knowing where they are in relation to the bad guys and, like, you know, all these other things. You care about Luke and the princess and all these things, and so when you're watching all this stuff happen, it matters. But I think, you know, to kind of tie this into some of the other things, like, you know, I think you're kind of hinting at, like, oh geez, you know, Lucas stole this shit. You know, did he even come up with anything? I mean, to that, you know, it's more or less like, so what? He stole it, made it better, and made it its own thing.
Yeah, I agree.
He didn't diminish the Hidden Fortress by doing this. He took inspiration from, you know, all these different sources, you know, built them, baked them into this cake, and made that successful. You know, kind of like taking the third act of the Dam Busters and making it more successful by, you know, orienting the audience as to where everything is, making the obstacle really clear. It's just one exhaust pipe or whatever.
Right, yeah.
In the Death Star, making the mission clear as to how Luke was able to do it and the other guy wasn't, or like, you know, okay, if all those sort of backup planes that draw the fire are gone, like, oh no, what's he going to do? All the dramatic tension there was sort of clarified and, you know, made more interesting in Star Wars than it was in Dam Busters. And, you know, some of the things that were borrowed at Hidden Fortress, I don't know, you know, Luke's Uncle Owen's home or whatever, you know, out of that side of that, I don't know what it was, like a little crater in the ground.
Yeah, they were like in a hole, yeah.
Yeah.
Got to stay cool.
Is, you know, very much like the Hidden Fortress, the titular Hidden Fortress.
Mm-hmm.
There were all these little like pieces that, you know, were taken from these things, but they were to create something different, and it was done successfully, so you give it some slack. If the movie sucked, if Star Wars was terrible, then you'd be like, oh, this rip-off, just taking all these pieces from these other places, and they didn't do it as good. Which, you know, fair enough. Like, I would probably make that argument. If Star Wars sucked,
sure,
I would be pissed that it stole so much from the Hidden Fortress and whatever else. But
it
because
doesn't.
he's able to pull it off and do it well, like,
I mean, that's what they say.
It makes
They
it work.
say, you know, a good artist creates, you know, a great artist borrows or steals, you know. So
sure.
In this instance, he was inspired by two, you know, really phenomenal cinematic experiences, and he brought it into his own. And like you said, made the most popular movie ever conceived. Like, everybody knows what this thing is. I'm not trying to dog Lucas by any means. Sure. There's no way in that. And in fact, I do recognize that this guy started what became a $4 billion franchise that he sold off and is now a $12 billion franchise, I believe. At least the last films that came out.
Because that's the mark of quality, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How many billions?
But overall, it's still one of the greatest movies ever made, and it's super fun to watch. Anything else from Star Wars?
Star Wars Trek?
I think I just got sniped from a phaser.
You're now the nerds are after you. No, I think that was pretty well covered. I mean, maybe we'll do more Star Wars later and argue about what we accept into the canon and what we don't.
There you go. Yeah, so to wrap things up a little bit, I think we're pretty good, right? We watched and discussed 3 films. The Dam Busters from 1955, Hidden Fortress from 1958, and Star Wars from 1977. All of these, or the first 2 films mentioned, were clear inspirations for some of the visuals and set pieces in Star Wars and some of the beats and storylines that were in that. But all in all, 3 very good films. I really, really recommend to anyone that hasn't seen Hidden Fortress to please watch it. From beginning to end, I was captivated by this movie, both visually. It felt like such a current film shot in black and white. I was like, this movie came out last year, and it's just they made it look like this, as a tribute to Kurosawa. But no, this is Kurosawa's original masterpiece, and it is just so damn awesome. Next week, we have a special guest, right? Or the next episode, we have a special guest. Is that correct?
Yeah.
We have our very special friend, Adam Ferberg, coming on. He's
special.
Hilarious gentleman who definitely knows movies, definitely knows Star Trek. I know we're shifting away from Star Wars for this one.
We're getting so far away from Star Wars.
Yeah.
We're going to Star Trek.
Shut up, Gandalf. So we're at the
Star
moment,
Trek, right? Gandalf?
So I think that the name of this is The Dark Side of Trek, if I'm correct. And we're going to be talking about 3 movies that have similar story beats and plot points to Trek episodes.
So this one is a Grindhouse Institute first, which is a guest programmed.
Yes. That's true. That's
films.
right. I guess El Mariachi was just a friended suggestion, right? A friend suggested that.
We were already kind of playing around with that, and Andy came in with a way to fix it. But this one we had nothing to do with, and Adam came up with the whole idea for it.
And apparently he's taken a lot of notes. He's been texting us all day, letting us know that he's watching these films, taking notes, and we're just like, "Yep, you should," because that's exactly what we do.
Can you just talk the whole time? I'm getting tired of talking.
So this is going to be entitled The Dark Side of Trek, and we're going to be looking at 3 awesome films again: Alien, Starship Troopers, and Event Horizon. And I've been telling Jeremy that I want to get Event Horizon on this show, and Adam brought this up, and we got it in there, so I'm getting what I want too. I'm really excited to rewatch all of these movies, especially Event Horizon. I think it's just an excellent haunted house film on a spaceship.
It's been slept on?
People did sleep on that movie. I think I think it's a really underappreciated, or at least when it first came out. I think people are starting to take notice of it now, similar to Exorcist 3, but that's for another show. But I think Event Horizon is a really cool take on sci-fi films and horror films and hell and things like that, and it's just a really cool mixture of science and religion,
and hell.
I guess, if you will. Yeah, and hell. It's just it's a great. Have you seen it?
No, I've never seen it. I'm excited about
Cool.
seeing it. I have seen the other 2.
Great.
But not Event Horizon. So
yeah, Starship Troopers. I'm excited because we're gonna have another Dean Norris appearance, right? Because I think he's in that movie as well. Paul Verhoeven must love Dean Norris. He's also in Total Recall. But he's he's
got
in
a lot of nerve showing your face around here.
Yeah, so we'll be back next week with the Dark Side of Trek. I'm Brian Foster with the Grindhouse Institute. Make sure you follow us on all the social media, on all the video, and all the podcast sites you can, wherever you listen, watch, or feel, or touch, or share.
Something.
Yeah, all of us there. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.
Look at him, he's heading for that small moon.
I think I can get him before he gets there. He's almost in range.
That's no moon.